When we talk about the AI revolution, our minds instantly go to these lightning-fast chips and, brilliant software. But behind all that glamour, there's this massive, physical, and absolutely critical piece of infrastructure that makes it all possible. And today, we're going to break down exactly what that is.
So let me ask you, what do you think it is? The first thing that probably pops into your head is a powerful GPU, right? One of those super expensive graphics cards that trains all the large language models.
But here's the thing. While those chips are definitely the engine, they need fuel. And I mean a truly staggering amount of it. And that fuel is data. So the real challenge, and the focus of our explainer today, isn't just about processing the data. It's about where you store all of it.
So here's our game plan. We're going to break down the massive data problem that AI has created. Then we'll look at the bull case for the humble hard drive. After that, we'll consider the threat from its faster cousin, the SSD, and meet the companies that are controlling this whole market. Then we'll see what to watch for and, of course, end with the big question.
Okay, first up, we've got to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this problem. See, AI doesn't just use data, it creates it at this crazy exponential rate, and all of that information needs a place to live.
This single number, this number defines the entire problem. Projections show the world's data is set to explode to over 527 zettabytes by 2029. Now, to put that into perspective, 1 zettabyte is a trillion gigabytes. It's an almost incomprehensible amount of information. And guess what's driving it? Yep, AI. Now, to manage this data explosion, data centers think in terms of temperature. It's actually a pretty cool concept. Hot data is the stuff that's being used right now. It needs to be on the fastest, most expensive storage you can buy. Warm data is used less often, and cold data, well, that's the massive archive. Think old training sets, backups, stuff you have to keep but don't look at every day.
And here is the absolute crucial point. The vast majority of all data, some projections say as high as 80%, is cold. It doesn't need blazing speed. What it needs is a cheap, reliable place to sit. And that economic reality, right there, is the key to this entire story.
And that brings us to the bull case for the classic hard disk drive, or HDD. It's the technology that makes storing 80% of the world's data, well, financially possible.
It all comes down to this one number, 6. Enterprise hard drives have a total cost of ownership that is 6 times lower per terabyte than their solid-state rivals. Now, this isn't a small gap. This is a massive economic moat.
So this is the fundamental divide, right? For that huge chunk of cold data, using expensive SSDs it's financially insane. It's prohibitive. And that's exactly why the world's biggest data center operators, the hyperscalers building AI, store something like 90% of their data on HDDs. It's the economic backbone of the cloud, period.
And hey, don't mistake this for some dusty legacy technology that's just standing still. The industry is innovating at a furious pace with technologies like HAMR and MAM, which use tiny lasers or microwaves to pack more and more data onto each disk. There's a clear roadmap to 50 and even 100 terabyte drives, making sure they can keep up with AI's bottomless appetite for data.
But, of course, there's a bear case. The hard drive has a fast and furious challenger that is superior in almost every other way: the solid-state drive. I mean, when it comes to performance, it's not even a contest. SSDs are way faster, they use less power, and you can pack a ton more storage into a smaller physical space. HDDs are mechanical. They've got spinning disks and moving parts, which makes them inherently slower and way less efficient.
And this power difference, it's a huge deal. Seriously, AI data centers are facing a genuine power crisis, and the difference here is just stark. An idle hard drive can use 10 times more power than an SSD. Now multiply that by millions of drives, and suddenly the inefficiency of HDDs becomes a major liability.
And this quote really hits the nail on the head. What good is a multi-million-dollar cluster of GPUs if it's just sitting there, twiddling its thumbs, waiting for data to be slowly fetched from a hard drive? In the wrong application, slow storage doesn't just slow things down, it wastes your most expensive asset.
So who actually makes these critical components? Well, the market isn't some free-for-all. It's an oligopoly, controlled by just 3 giants.
First, you've got Seagate, the pure-play leader. They're betting big on their next-gen HAMR technology. Then there's Western Digital, a diversified player with major businesses in both HDDs and SSDs, so they can kind of play both sides of the fence. And finally, you have Toshiba, the third major player, rounding out the group that controls over 95% of the entire market.
So if you're watching this space, what are the key signals? What's going to tell you which way the wind is blowing?
Okay, in the short term, there are 3 big things to watch. First, price hikes. We're already seeing them, which means demand is starting to outstrip supply. Second, keep a close eye on the rollout of the new 30 terabyte plus drives. Their success is absolutely critical. And third, listen to the earnings calls from the big cloud companies. Their spending plans will tell you everything you need to know about future demand.
Looking a little further out, it's all about execution. Can the industry actually deliver on its promise of 50 terabyte drives and beyond? And crucially, will that 6x cost advantage hold up? That's the big one. And a potential game changer would be if they introduce new interfaces that help close that performance gap with SSDs.
All right, so let's sum it all up. AI is creating a data storage problem on a scale we've never seen before. For the vast majority of that data, hard drives have an unbeatable cost advantage, but their slower performance and higher power use make them vulnerable to the relentless advance of SSDs, all happening within a market that's controlled by just 3 companies.
Which really leaves us with this final question. It's a classic matchup, isn't it? The steady, reliable, and cheap workhorse versus the flashy, fast, and expensive racehorse.
But maybe the question is even simpler than that. When you're dealing with a scale of data so vast it's measured in zettabytes, does the simple, brutal logic of cost ultimately beat everything else? That right there is the multi-billion-dollar question at the heart of AI's physical foundation.